Good morning. Hope you're all staying warm, maybe enjoying a little bit of the snow. What I want to do this morning is work with you to get Northwind Database installed in MySQL. First thing you're going to want to do, go to the web page, scroll down to the lecture notes section, and under Introduction to SQL, you'll see Download the Northwind Database. Download that file. That'll download a zip file. You'll want to store that zip file wherever you created your folder for course materials in Homework 0. Once it's there, also go ahead and unzip it. Note that if you're on Windows, sometimes if you simply double click it, it'll show you what's in the file, but it won't actually unzip it. So right click on it and I think it's uncompress or unzip or something like that. So make sure that you get that file and its unzipped version inside the folder you made in Homework 0. You can pause the video and do that real quick and then join back up in a second. Okay, so now that you have that done, we're going to switch over to DataGrip. And a couple things I want to note. If you haven't done anything with DataGrip since Homework 0, you may or may not have this files pane open on the right-hand side. If you don't, click this files icon in the top kind of menu bar area, and that should open this file. So if I click it, you'll see it goes away. The folder that you created as part of the project in Homework 0 should already be listed here. If it's not, what you can do is in this files pane, you can go ahead and click this attach directory to project, or you can right click and choose attach directory to project. When you do that, you'll just need to navigate to whatever folder you put the zip file and its unzipped SQL file in. So once you have that, you'll notice that I have both the zip file and the SQL file. We don't really need the zip file anymore, but it's fine to leave it there. We're going to work with the zip file now. So heading on over to the left-hand side of the window, you should still be connected to the MySQL instance that's running in Docker. Before you do anything else, pause the video and go start your Docker container, and then rejoin. So as long as your MySQL container is running inside Docker, you'll want to come back to DataGrip, and if you don't have the data source anymore, I'll talk you through real quick how to add the data source. So you can click on the plus sign, we'll go to data source, we're going to choose MySQL. There's a few different options, just choose the one that says MySQL. Now your screen may or may not look exactly like mine, but you can give the data source a name as you did in Homework 0. I'm just going to leave it because I'm not going to actually fully do it here. You want to change the port to 3307. User will be root, and the password will be whatever password you gave it when you created your MySQL container. So in the environment variable section, you would have typed MySQL_root_password, and then in the next field over, actually given it a password, that is the password you'd put here. Everything else should stay the same. I will then type test connection, and it succeeded. If you get a failed, it may mean that, could mean a few things. One, your MySQL container is not running, that you forgot to change the port, maybe you left it at 3306, and maybe you typed in the password wrong. So try some of those things. If you can't get it to work, hop on over to office hours with the TA, and they can either help you get it to work, or they can help you just recreate MySQL, which is not a big deal. Okay, so now that we have our data source created, we have our SQL files unzipped and ready to go. Ignore this stuff down here. I was just testing earlier. But what we're going to do is right-click on the SQL file, not the zip file, the SQL file. Okay, and then we're going to go to run Northwind update.sql. Now when you come here, this will be empty. The target data source will be empty. What you'll do is you'll click add, and whatever the name of your data source is for MySQL should be listed here. I just named mine 26S test, but yours should have, your name, last name in it and whatnot. So double click on it and you'll notice that it says unknown, and that's because we don't have a specific database we're adding this SQL to, like the code that's in the file. The file itself creates the database. So that's why it says unknown, and that's totally okay. With all of these things selected, you don't need to do anything else. Just leave everything else the way it is, and just click Run. And you'll see that window will pop up. It'll go through some things, and then it's done when it gives you this summary line. It says 3,357 commands executed. Okay, it might take a bit depending on your computer, but it should finish in probably under a minute. All right. So now that you have that done, if you get to that summary and that number is the same, then we're good to go. So what you can do is back at your data source, click this where it says 0 of 5 now, and you should notice that there's a Northwind option. So we're going to check Northwind, and you can just click anywhere out of it to get it to go away. Notice it's saying it's performing introspection on Northwind. All this means is that it's going through the database, the MySQL database, and it's extracting things like table names and attribute names so that when you're typing SQL, you get some extra help. So if I expand this, you'll now see that there's Northwind. And if I expand it more, you'll see there's 11 tables, and it gives you the name of the tables here. So that means that you've probably imported everything correctly. If you want to just do a double quick check, you can double click on, let's say, categories, and it should show you some information. And so this would be the categories of different products that Northwind has in its database. Of course, you don't really need the files pane anymore for now. You can close that by just clicking this icon again. Okay, so if you just double click on a table on the left hand side, you get the data in the table. So what we want to do is figure out how to write some SQL. So if you don't have a console open, I'm going to close mine just so I can show you how to do it. Just go to 26S test, new, and then do query console. Okay. Now, a few things to note, and I'll show you some different ways to do this in class. But you'll notice there's no schema selected. So a database, Northwind, we call it a database. Technically in MySQL, it's called a schema. Schema and database in MySQL are synonymous. So what this provides you is one MySQL server. So like that one MySQL container running in Docker. You can actually have multiple databases in it, and of course databases can have tables. So I could have Northwind, and I could have Sequila, and a whole bunch of different ones. So whenever we write a SQL statement, like a simple select statement, MySQL needs to know which schema, which database to execute that query against. So what we want to do is choose the drop down, and we're going to choose just Northwind. And you'll see it says use Northwind. You could have achieved the same thing by actually typing use Northwind. Again, I'll show you a bunch of the use commands a bit later in the course. So that means that DataGrip is connected to basically the Northwind database that's running inside your MySQL Docker container. So given that, we should be able to say something like simple select. So select star from categories. Okay. And then I put a semicolon. You'll notice there's this sort of bounding box around the query. That means that DataGrip has identified it. This is sort of the active query. We're just going to go down a couple lines and type a different select statement from, we'll say, customers. So you'll notice now that the cursor's kind of inside this query. This is the bounding box. If I move this up, the box changes. The value in that is if you click the run button or the execute, it will execute whatever query is currently active, which is the one that has the bounding box around it. So if I have this query active and I click the execute button, it will show me the output down here at the bottom. So that's the result of executing that query. Now, it could have been the case that when you executed, there was another little context menu that asked you a couple things. I turned that off years ago. I don't remember what the options are because it's been so long. But if you just choose the default one, the one that's highlighted, then that should be fine. If you want to turn that off, then let me know. Just bring your laptop up after class one day and I'll help you turn it off. Another thing that sometimes happens is, which I have turned off in my DataGrip, is the autocomplete, where it's trying to be super helpful. I find it super annoying. So I have all of the sort of autocomplete features that do the auto drop downs and things turned off. I would encourage you to also turn this off because it can get really easy to just start to rely on it, use it as a crutch a little bit, which, no, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But for the purposes of preparing for exams, you'll want to become familiar with the SQL syntax. I find it distracting, so that's why I turn it off. So, it's up to you, but since you won't have the benefit of drop-downs on an exam, then you'll definitely want to practice writing some SQL without the benefit of the autocomplete or drop-downs. If when you see those drop-downs and you want to turn them off, in the bottom of the drop-down, again, I've had them off for so long, in the bottom of the drop-down, I think there's a little gear or something that you can click, and it'll take you to the settings that allow you to control the contextual help. So you can turn it off there. If you can't find it, let me know again, and I will figure it out and let you know. So that's the query. When I hit execute, that's the query that gets executed. If I now come down and choose this query, I can execute that, and I get yet another table, which just is all the customers. Okay. So you can have as many queries as you want in a console. However, it's important to remember it's a console, so it's meant to be sort of transient. So the, if you write, let's say you do a bunch of gnarly queries for a homework assignment or something in a console, and at some point DataGrip just decides to die. You get some sort of error and it stops working. The possibility exists that when you return, the console might not, all the stuff in the console might not be there anymore. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But what I would encourage you to do in terms of working on homework problems is to create a SQL file that has the contents of your queries embedded in it or directly typed in it. So we're going to go back to our files pane, and you can just right click on the name of the folder, and we're going to choose new, and we'll say SQL file. I'm going to give it a name like, let's say, homework02.sql. Notice it shows up right there. Now, as long as you put your SQL code in here for your homework and you're saving it as you're working on it, then if DataGrip does have some problems, that file will be saved just like any other source code file has been saved. So I'm going to choose data source 26s test and then Northwind. Now in the file for homework, you would put use Northwind like that. Use is not SQL. It's it's a MySQL specific helper command. There's a bunch of them, as I mentioned. So you can say use Northwind, and then you can execute it. Now, to execute it, I'm on a Mac. You can click the play button or the execute button. That's totally fine. You can also hit Command Enter on a Mac, and it will execute it. Or if you're on a Windows machine, I believe it's Control Enter to execute. So then I can do a select star, from products. Notice if you don't finish typing or it doesn't recognize the name of something, it'll turn it red. And I can't spell P-R-O-D-U-C, products, semicolon. You should end all your queries in semicolons. That also helps DataGrip know where the end of the full query is. So I'll hit Command Enter again. Again, if you hit Command Enter, you might have that little sort of pop-up that asks you, again, I don't know what the questions are, but just choose the top option. I think that'll be fine. So if you were to look here, it'll tell you all of the, in this case, products that Northwind sells. So that gets you started with using the Northwind database in MySQL. What I would encourage you to do is take the queries that we've written in slide deck number 3 so far, so some of the examples, and with the examples from Northwind, and go ahead and type them in. You can type them in the console or a separate script file. I wouldn't name it homework 2, but you can create a new one that's, lecture 3 examples.sql, and type them in and kind of get comfortable with executing SQL commands in DataGrip. On Wednesday, we will resume the course material talking about where clauses. I just rather do it in person rather than kind of through a video. So work with this, try out those queries, maybe come up with some other queries, and we will reconvene on Wednesday. Again, hope you're all staying warm, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Take care.